the past half a century, an ancient army of warriors has been quietly conquering the world. Wherever small battalions of China's famous terracotta warriors are exhibited, they win over a new legion of fans.
The Terracotta Army is not what you were told. For 50 years, it was described as loyal guardians of the Emperor's afterlife.
There's only one way to survive, and that is to conquer!
But Qin Shi Huang, the first emperor of China, was never remembered as a ruler of peace. He subjected millions to unbearable suffering.
He cheated death and built a tomb the like of which mankind has never seen.
Yet one thing haunted him above all else. He feared death. In 2024, archaeologists uncovered proof of that fear. Hidden in a pit was a commander figure unlike any other. When scientists realized why he was placed there and who this commander represented, they were horrified. A chance discovery beneath dry soil. In the spring of 1984, just outside the ancient city of Xi'an in China's Shanxi province, a group of weary farmers were fighting for survival. A relentless drought had choked their land. The soil was dry as dust, the rivers had thinned to a trickle, and their crops were dying faster than they could be harvested. Day after day, they watched their future crumble beneath a scorching sun. Desperate and out of options, they decided to dig a new well. Maybe, just maybe, there was water hidden deep underground. But instead of water, they unearthed something far stranger. As they hacked into the rock-hard earth, their tools struck something unexpected. It wasn't stone, it wasn't soil. It gave off a dull, hollow thud. Curious, they dug faster. Then they saw it, shards of what looked like pottery. At first, they assumed it was garbage from the past, nothing more than broken household debris. But just as they were about to move on, one farmer pulled something out of the dirt that made them all freeze. It was an ear, crafted from clay. It was life-sized, perfectly shaped, and eerily human. Then came a sculpted mustache, then a cheekbone, then an entire face, staring back at them with a calm, confident expression that felt disturbingly real. The farmers pressed on until their tools struck against something solid, and a torso covered with armor slowly revealed itself. The figure was heavy, solid, and terrifyingly lifelike. At that moment, the farmers dropped their tools. Panic and awe hung in the air. They understood this was not normal, and it was not something meant to be found. A heavy silence followed, and with unease settling over them, they finally called the authorities. Archaeologists arrived quickly and sealed off the area. What they found next sent shockwaves across the country. Dozens more figures began to rise from the earth. Then hundreds. All were life-sized. All were soldiers. They stood in rows, shoulder to shoulder, like a frozen army locked in eternal formation. Some held weapons, some wore commanding expressions, others looked battle-worn, but all of them looked real. The discovery stunned even the most seasoned archaeologists. No one had ever seen anything like it. Historians rushed to the site. The world's media followed. Everyone wanted to know what this was, who built it, and why it had been kept secret for so long. And yet, even as the excitement exploded, an uncomfortable question took hold. These soldiers hadn't simply been buried. They had been concealed on purpose, and with incredible care. But why? That question would only grow darker, stranger, and more chilling as the digging continued. The silent army that was never meant to be found. As the digging continued and more of the site was exposed, the true scale of the discovery left everyone stunned. What started as a few strange statues quickly became something unimaginable. Entire underground chambers were revealed, massive pits that stretched wide and deep, filled with row after row of clay soldiers standing in perfect formation. They were frozen mid-march, like a ghost army waiting in silence. There were thousands of them. As the excavation continued, more than 8,000 life-sized warriors emerged from the earth. Each pit revealed a different force of soldiers. Tight lines of infantry stood shoulder to shoulder. Archers were positioned as if ready to fire. Cavalry sat mounted on powerful clay horses. Officers were posed with quiet authority. These weren't random sculptures. They were precise military units, built with knowledge of ancient Qin battle tactics. But it wasn't just the numbers that shocked the archaeologists. It was the unbelievable detail. Every warrior was completely unique. Each face told a different story. Some were young and focused, while others were older with hardened expressions. Not one was repeated. Their uniforms and hairstyles changed by rank and role. Some wore heavy armor. Others had lighter gear for speed. Even the soles of their shoes were carved with care. The craftsmanship was beyond anything they'd seen before. Hands were sculpted with veins and wrinkles. Armor had tiny, visible stitching. And the weapons, bronze swords, daggers, crossbows, were not just decorative. Many were still razor-sharp. Some had early anti-rust coatings, created with metallurgical techniques so advanced, modern scientists are still trying to figure them out. And the army wasn't alone. Musicians, acrobats, and life-sized clay horses stood beside the soldiers. Saddles and reins were carved into place. Instruments lay ready as if waiting to be played. It was not just an army. It was a full-scale recreation of an empire, complete with military power, social order, and absolute control. Every detail was constructed in secret, built to last forever, and meant to mirror the world of the living. For years, archaeologists believed they had seen everything the pits could reveal. That belief ended with the shocking discovery of the Terracotta Army commander. Many researchers later admitted that the memory of the commander's face followed them into their sleep, causing horrifying dreams. The commander was not just another soldier, he was a message carved in clay. This Terracotta Army was built for the terrifying first emperor of a unified China, Qin Shi Huang, the emperor who built a kingdom beneath the earth. In the year 220 BC, a man named Qin Shi Huang achieved something no one before him had ever done. After years of relentless warfare that left entire populations slaughtered and cities burned to ash, he crushed every rival kingdom that once divided ancient China. The wars were brutal. Prisoners were executed in the tens of thousands. Families were torn apart. Regions that resisted were erased from the map. When the bloodshed finally ended, Qin Shi Huang did something that stunned the world of his time. He declared himself Qin Shi Huang, the first emperor of Qin. He forced every conquered land to bow to him and erased the old traditions of the rival states. For the first time in history, all of China was united under one ruler, and Qin Shi Huang stood at the center of it all. His word was law, his armies unstoppable, and his punishments merciless. His accomplishments were nothing short of extraordinary. He created the first centralized imperial government in Chinese history, bringing a new order to a land long torn by conflict. To connect his vast empire, he built roads that stretched for thousands of miles, and he began the construction of massive walls to protect his kingdom, including the early foundations of what would become the legendary Great Wall of China. He demanded that everyone in his empire use the same writing system, the same currency, and the same units of measurement. These sweeping changes transformed a chaotic patchwork of states into a unified nation. His vision was clear: to create a China that would stand strong for centuries. And in many ways, his efforts laid the foundation for more than 2,000 years of dynastic rule. But Qin Shi Huang was not just a great leader, he was also a deeply troubled man. According to ancient records, especially those by the famous historian Sima Qian, the emperor was consumed by fear. He feared death above all else. He was also terrified of rebellion and losing control. These fears haunted him day and night, shaping his every decision. Driven by his terror of dying, Qin Shi Huang poured immense resources into the search for immortality. He sent daring expeditions across dangerous seas, hoping to find magical elixirs that would grant him eternal life. But no such miracle was ever found. While these fruitless quests continued, he also turned his attention to something else, preparing for his life after death. He wanted to create a tomb unlike any other, a place that would not only preserve his memory, but protect his spirit forever. The scale of this project was staggering. Ancient records claim that he began building his tomb when he was only 13 years old. Over nearly 4 decades, more than 700,000 people, many of them prisoners and forced laborers, were made to work on this colossal undertaking. It was a harsh and grueling task. Some reports suggest a chilling cruelty, that many workers were buried alive once the tomb was completed, to ensure its secrets would never be revealed to the outside world. The very idea sends a shiver down the spine. An entire army of workers sealed forever in darkness, their voices silenced for all time. But this tomb was far more than just a burial site. It was an underground empire, built to mirror the world Qin Shi Huang ruled in life. According to Sima Qian's detailed accounts, the tomb included exact replicas of his palaces and entire regions of his vast empire. The ceiling was painted with constellations to recreate the night sky, and the floor contained flowing rivers of mercury, which were said to represent China's great waterways. The descriptions sound incredible, almost unbelievable, but they come from the historian's careful records. The dangers inside the tomb did not end with toxic mercury. Ancient sources also speak of deadly traps set to guard the emperor's final resting place. These included pressure-sensitive crossbows that would fire arrows, and mechanisms designed to unleash lethal surprises on anyone foolish enough to try to enter. The thought is terrifying. This tomb was built not only to honor Qin Shi Huang in death, but to protect him with the same fierce power he commanded in life. The Terracotta Army is also believed to be a loyal shield for Qin Shi Huang. Thousands of clay soldiers are thought to stand guard over his soul, protecting him from enemies in the afterlife, just as his armies had done in life. But the recent discovery of the Terracotta Army commander would expose a shocking secret that had been desperately hidden for decades. Despite all these worrisome discoveries, no one has ever dared to physically enter the emperor's chamber. But in 2006, for the first time, Chinese archaeologists and geophysicists pushed radar scans into the mound itself. What they found changed everything. A tomb wrapped in mystery and sealed by fear. The team worked slowly, moving radar equipment across the massive burial mound. At first, the screens showed faint lines, nothing unusual. But then, as the waves penetrated deeper, a pattern began to emerge. Massive walls, corridors, and chambers appeared in the scans, stacked in layers beneath the earth. What they were looking at was not a simple tomb, but an underground complex on a staggering scale. Members of the team gasped as the images sharpened. Some compared it to discovering an entire city hidden below their feet. One archaeologist later admitted that the hairs on the back of his neck stood up as the scans revealed geometric precision and scale unlike anything known from the ancient world. The shock deepened when soil samples taken from around the mound were tested. Chemical analysis revealed extremely high concentrations of mercury, levels so unnatural that they could not have occurred by chance. The team was stunned. Ancient records that spoke of flowing rivers and lakes of mercury inside the tomb had long been dismissed as legend or metaphor. Now those stories were proven true. The deadly metal was real, and it had been placed there deliberately to guard the emperor's eternal resting place. Further tests only heightened the unease. Electrical resistivity and self-potential surveys confirmed the presence of large voids that likely marked coffin chambers and sealed passageways. The radar also indicated partition walls that divided the space into separate zones and corridors, linking different sections. Some readings even suggested watertight barriers still intact after 2,000 years, showing that parts of the tomb's defensive systems were still working. The revelations from the 2006 surveys were enough to shock the scientific community, but they also left the Chinese government facing a dilemma. The scans had confirmed that vast structures and lethal defenses still existed within the mound, yet opening the emperor's chamber was far too risky. Officials quickly made it clear that the tomb would remain sealed, citing two main reasons: preservation and danger. The first concern was scientific preservation. When the terracotta warriors were first uncovered in the 1970s, their vibrant painted surfaces flaked off and vanished within minutes of exposure to air and sunlight. Entire layers of color, lost forever, had shown how fragile the underground world truly was. So, opening the emperor's chamber without advanced methods to preserve delicate artifacts could lead to irreversible destruction. The second concern was safety. The mercury readings alone were enough to raise alarm. Soil around the mound contained concentrations hundreds of times higher than background levels, proving that toxic metal still pooled beneath the surface. Combined with ancient accounts of crossbow traps and hidden mechanisms, the idea of physically entering the tomb became not only dangerous, but potentially deadly. There was also a cultural and political dimension. Qin Shi Huang is both revered and feared in Chinese history. For some officials, disturbing his resting place could be seen as disrespectful or even dangerous on a symbolic level. The government's stance became firm. The central tomb of Qin Shi Huang would remain untouched for the foreseeable future. Research could continue through non-invasive methods like radar and chemical sampling, but the heart of the mausoleum would stay sealed. But many are not convinced this is the whole truth. Skeptics, historians, archaeologists, and curious members of the public all believe something darker might be keeping the tomb locked tight. They point to ancient accounts filled with chilling warnings about human sacrifices, deadly traps, and secrets meant to be buried forever. What if this tomb holds more than just artifacts? What if it contains truths so explosive that they could rewrite history or shatter the carefully constructed image of the first emperor? These questions haunt every expert and enthusiast alike. The longer the tomb stays sealed, the louder the rumors of fear and fascination grow. Then, in late 2024, everything changed. A new discovery was made, not inside the central tomb itself, but in a nearby pit long thought to be fully explored and emptied. This find shook the foundations of what was believed possible and threatened to unravel decades of assumptions. The commander that shouldn't have been there. In 2024, a team of archaeologists resumed excavation in Pit 2 of the Terracotta Army, an area known for cavalry and flanking units. The work was part of a routine, carefully controlled effort. No one expected anything unusual. The team moved slowly, methodically, brushing away centuries of soil. Then something strange began to emerge. At first, it looked like another figure. But as more of it came into view, the atmosphere shifted. Conversations stopped. Tools paused mid-air. What surfaced was unlike anything they had ever seen. The upper half of the statue stood upright, commanding attention. The posture was rigid, authoritative. The armor was richly adorned with geometric patterns that had never appeared in any catalog or archive. It was too precise to be random. The face was even more striking. It was sharper and more expressive than any figure uncovered before. The eyes seemed to lock onto whoever stared back. The high-knot hairstyle marked him as someone of status, possibly even elite command. But it was his right hand that sent chills through the team. It was raised, palm half-turned, not in combat, not at rest, but as if giving a silent, unquestionable command. Shock rippled through the crew. One archaeologist whispered, "This isn't just a soldier." When the lower half was uncovered, the truth became undeniable. The figure wasn't part of the rank and file. This was a commander, the first ever discovered, and he may have been modeled after a real historical figure, one whose identity points toward a much darker chapter in China's past. The excavation had started as a routine dig, but now it was something else entirely. A new discovery reveals a darker truth about China's past. Researchers studying the commander's armor found something deeply unsettling. The carvings were not the simple patterns seen on other officers. They matched symbols tied to the Black Standard Guard. This was no ceremonial unit. It was the emperor's private enforcers, a force that lived on fear and blood. Ancient texts describe them as the hands that carried out purges, executions, and brutal interrogations. They silenced scholars, strangled officials, and even crushed members of the royal family who dared question the throne. This link twists the meaning of the Terracotta Army itself. If this commander is modeled after a real general of that dreaded guard, then the army is a warning. Qin Shi Huang did not just want guards for his afterlife. He wanted the very machinery of terror buried with him, to ensure his grip on power never loosened, not even in death. These warriors are faces of submission and control, immortalized in clay. The connection becomes more horrifying when we recall the burning of the books and burying of the scholars. In 213 BCE, the emperor ordered knowledge erased and hundreds of Confucian scholars executed or buried alive. The commander's statue may represent the man who oversaw this massacre. If true, then the clay figure is not symbolic at all. It is the face of the executioner who destroyed China's intellectual heart. The violence of the Qin state is written everywhere in history. Workers forced to build the mausoleum were sealed inside its walls, entombed alive so no secrets would leak. Archaeologists have unearthed mass graves near the Great Wall, filled with laborers who died building under impossible conditions. If this commander is the enforcer of such cruelty, his presence in the Terracotta Army proves the emperor intended to glorify his most ruthless tools. Qin Shi Huang also built one of the earliest systems of surveillance. The Black Standard Guard and their networks of spies monitored civilians, soldiers, and officials constantly. Even conversations spoken in private could be fatal. A husband muttering about harsh laws at dinner, neighbors whispering about heavy taxes, or families quietly remembering the rulers of their old kingdoms could all be reported. Doubts about the emperor, or even speculation about who might rule after him, were treated as treason. The punishment was torture or execution, not only for the accused, but sometimes for their entire families under the collective responsibility system. As a result, trust collapsed. People could not be sure if a neighbor, a servant, or even a child in their household might betray them. If this commander embodies the man who enforced that terror, then the Terracotta Army is a blueprint of tyranny. Even more disturbing is the possibility behind their lifelike detail. Every warrior has a unique face. Some scholars now fear these were not imagined features, but modeled after real men, possibly the very prisoners, laborers, or victims of Qin's campaigns. If true, the Terracotta Army is a mass grave in disguise, where the dead were given clay bodies to serve the emperor for eternity. And now the most chilling thought remains. If one commander like this has surfaced, what else is still buried beneath the mound, sealed by design to keep its darkest truths hidden? Less than 30% of the site has been excavated. The heart of the complex, the Emperor's sealed tomb, has never been opened. Some scholars believe it could hold the greatest cache of ancient knowledge ever uncovered. Imperial records, early technologies, political secrets, and scrolls from a world before recorded history. But others fear what else might be waiting. One theory is that the tomb is not only filled with treasures, but also the preserved remains of those sacrificed to protect it. Thousands of workers are believed to have been buried alive after construction. Their bodies may still line the passageways, preserved by the mercury-rich soil, twisted in agony where they died. Imagine entering the chamber and finding walls stacked with corpses used as human barriers, their skeletal hands clawing at the stone. Another fear is that Qin Shi Huang's obsession with control led him to turn the tomb into a laboratory of cruelty. He sought immortality through alchemy. Some believe his alchemists may have entombed early experiments like failed bodies altered by mercury, strange mixtures of flesh and metal, or jars containing grotesque remains of human trials. If these chambers are opened, we may see the earliest evidence of state-sanctioned human experimentation. There is also the disturbing possibility of clay prisons. The Terracotta Army outside may only be the surface display. Inside the tomb, entire chambers may be filled with clay replicas of executed rebels, officials, and scholars, with each modeled in lifelike detail. As punishment, their identities stolen and remade in clay so they could serve the Emperor forever. The unopened tomb may be a carefully engineered nightmare where knowledge, cruelty, and death are sealed together in the dark. What do you think about this discovery? Comment down below.